Tonight at 10, the people of France have chosen their new president, the youngest in the country's history. Celebrations in Paris tonight as Emmanuel Macron, a strong supporter of the European Union, wins power at the age of 39. It'll be his first experience of elected office.
I know that there are disagreements, and I will respect this. And I will be faithful to that commitment taken. I will protect the Republic.
It's a night of defeat for the hard-right campaign of Marine Le Pen, but she insists her agenda is now in the mainstream of political debate.
I will be at the head of a battle to gather together all those who choose France to protect its independence, its freedom, its prosperity and its security.
We'll have reaction from Paris, and we'll be asking what this result means for the future of the European Union as the Brexit process unfolds.
And also coming up on tonight's programme, Labour's tax pledge. If it wins the election, it won't raise income tax for anyone earning less than £80,000 a year. The Conservatives focus on mental health, promising another 10,000 staff in England if they're re-elected on June the 8th. And a first glimpse of the 82 Nigerian schoolgirls kidnapped 3 years ago and now free after a prisoner swap.
A very good evening from Paris, where Emmanuel Macron has scored a notable victory in today's election. He'll take office in a week's time as the youngest president in the history of France at the age of 39. He has never held elected office before, and his independent political movement was formed just a year ago. Well, the margin of victory after a divisive campaign was pretty convincing. Projected results show the centrist Macron took 65% of the vote, while the hard-right Marine Le Pen took 34%. The turnout was slightly down on the last presidential contest 5 years ago. Monsieur Macron comes to power at a critical moment, not only for France, but also for the European Union, as it grapples with many challenges, including the Brexit process in the years ahead. Our first report tonight on the result is by our Europe editor Katja Adler, and there is some flash photography in the report.
Young, dynamic and very, very confident. Emmanuel Macron, set to become France's youngest leader since Napoleon, took the crowd by storm.
In the face of extremism, I know that there are disagreements, and I will respect this. And I will be faithful to that commitment taken. I will protect the Republic.
Moment. Mighty France, an economic and political world heavyweight, key EU nation, will now be presided over by a 39-year-old virtual political newcomer who's made a lot of big promises.
To bring revolution, to change hungry France and the European Union. Business-friendly, yet socially just. Neither left nor right-wing. Sound like a tall order? His delighted supporters have faith.
I'm really happy because Emmanuel Macron is the good solution, the good choice to keep our valor in France. We love Europe.
I'm very happy about these results.
It means confidence, it means future. France is not dead, France is not an old country dying. France has hope.
But easy it won't be. This is a divided country. Marine Le Pen may have lost tonight, but millions voted for her and her far-right programme.
I propose to transform our movement into a new political force, a force which more and more French people are calling for and which is more necessary than ever before to rebuild our country. I call on all patriots to join us for a decisive political battle which begins this evening and will continue in the months ahead.
far from being defeatist, her supporters were defiant.
You're never happy unless you win, of course, but we've got to look at the very good sides of this result. We have gathered around us people from outside our party for the protectionist views we have, for the programme Marine Le Pen has put forward.
Supporters of France's forceful far left also took to the streets tonight, some in a violent mood. For them, Emmanuel Macron is no solution. He's part of the problem, they think, of elitist, big business-minded government. But tonight, a new French revolution is promised, with a new president from a brand new party announcing a new dawn for France. For his supporters, at least, the three colours of the French flag are not just about liberty, equality and fraternity, but above all, hope. Katya Adler, BBC News, Paris.
Well, by any measure, the political rise of Emmanuel Macron has been remarkable. He's a former investment banker and served as an advisor and later a minister in the socialist government of François Hollande, the outgoing president. But he then resigned last year to form his own centrist political movement called En Marche, or On the Move. Well, our Paris correspondent, Lucy Williamson, reports now on the man chosen to be France's new head of state and asks what kind of president he's likely to be.
He's the choice of a country desperate for change, a politician who's neither left nor right, part of the French establishment yet never before elected, a fresh face who served in the outgoing government. So who is Emmanuel Macron? To his supporters, he's their Emmanuel, their political messiah, a provincial boy from outside the establishment who worked his way to power.
Vive la France! He's a new man to politics.
He's trying to find new solutions.
He really is a new face.
He's our hope.
But he went to France's most prestigious schools, met its most powerful people and made millions in an investment bank. A former colleague says Macron's rise is partly down to charm, but that at heart he's a secretive man.
He's able to tell people what they really want to hear. So he's a very seductive man, and he managed to agree with nearly anyone. So that's a talent.
Macron's wife Brigitte told one journalist that her husband never let people close. The couple met when she taught him drama at school. Their unusual love affair, a sign, says one of Macron's old friends, of his determination, self-belief and drive.
I think the only person who really know him inside deeply is Brigitte. You have to imagine he seduced her, he convinced her to marry him, he convinced his family. Just imagine, it's real. It's not a small thing.
France has not this time opted for the political extremes. The far right rejected in favour of a liberal newcomer with his own promise of change. Emmanuel Macron has vowed to unite a divided and disillusioned France, but his critics say he's just the old wine in a shiny new bottle, and the price of failure could be high. Some say Emmanuel Macron has won the presidency by being all things to all people, but he won't be able to govern that way. He has 5 years to solve France's problems, or risk it choosing more radical change next time.
Well, Lucy is with me now, and I'm just wondering, on the basis of the speech we've heard tonight, 2 speeches from the president-elect, he talked about rebuilding, he talked about uniting France after such a divisive campaign. That's going to be a pretty tall order, isn't it?
It is, and he paid tribute to everyone who'd voted in this campaign, not just those who'd voted for him, but those who'd voted for him despite themselves, those who'd voted for Marine Le Pen. He's aware that he won decisively tonight with his liberal vision, but this is a divided country. A third of people today voted for the far right, and if you think back a couple of weeks to the first round, Mr. Macron was the first choice for less than a quarter of the electorate, so he knows he's got a lot of work to do.
We've been underlining all day why this result is not just important for France, it's important for all of the European Union and, of course, that union facing many challenges, not least the Brexit process coming up. To what extent will he have an impact on that process? To what extent will the government of the UK be wanting to talk to him very carefully in the months ahead?
I think they will want him to be talked to him. He's going to have a big say because he's popular in Europe. He's a pro-European, a complete Europhile. He wants closer cooperation with the European countries and with the EU. He said some pretty tough things about Brexit, you know, so I think it does remain to be seen whether he's going to follow through on them. But he is someone who is very pro-free trade and really wants to build up the economy of France in that way. So I think, yes, Theresa May is going to want to talk to him pretty soon.
Lucy, again, thanks very much. Lucy Williamson there, our Paris correspondent. We'll be back in Paris a little later in the programme, but let's have the day's other main news now and join Michelle.
Thank you. In election campaigning here, Labour has made a pledge on tax, saying that if it wins on June the 8th, it won't raise income tax for anyone earning less than £80,000 a year. The Shadow Chancellor, John McDonnell, said that those earning more than that would be asked to pay a bit more to help fund public services. The Conservatives say they have no plan to raise income tax, but they have so far refused to completely rule it out. Our political correspondent Ben Wright reports.
It was a slogan used by Tony Blair, now revived by Labour's new leadership. Setting out what he called a big deal to upgrade the economy, John McDonnell promised not to raise VAT or national insurance for anyone, but said the top 5% of earners would pay more.
If Labour is elected next month, we will guarantee for the next 5 years there will be no income tax rises for all those earning less than £80,000 a year. Labour is now the party of low taxes for middle and lower earners.
Mr McDonnell said people earning more than £80,000 a year would pay a modest amount more, but the rates and details would have to wait for the manifesto. The Conservatives have promised not to raise VAT, but have, so far, made no matching pledge on national insurance or income tax. Today, the Tories said Labour was going back to the past.
The McDonnell line is very much a clear statement of intent. They want to raise taxes, they want to penalise business, they want to penalise wealth creation, and I think they will end up wrecking the economy as they have done in the past.
The total amount of income tax raised in 2016 was just over £169 billion. The top 5% of UK earners, Labour's target group for tax rises, paid just over 47% of that, close to £80 billion.
You can't make a really big change to the amount of money that's available just by focusing on people over 80,000 a year, partly because they already pay an awful lot of tax and a lot more than they did a few years ago, but partly because if you really want significant amounts of money, you have to do something that politicians don't like doing, which is hit the majority of people, which is where the VAT and the national insurance and a lot of income tax is actually paid.
You're pledging to increase tax on higher earners to pay for public services and borrow billions for infrastructure. But that has been Labour's message since Jeremy Corbyn became leader. Why do you think it can turn around things for Labour in the last 4 weeks of this general election campaign when it seems it hasn't worked so far?
I think there's an opportunity now in a general election campaign which we've never had before since Jeremy Corbyn was elected leader. I think we'll be able to turn the polls around, and I genuinely think we can secure a majority on June the 8th.
Many of the bankers and financiers who work here would pay more income tax under Labour's plan. And this is the first general election for many years where there's a stark choice developing between Labour and the Conservatives over how the economy should be run and how money should be raised and spent. Ben Wright, BBC News at Canary Wharf.
The Conservatives put the focus on mental health today, promising to reform the law to reduce discrimination and to recruit thousands more staff in England. The Health Secretary, Jeremy Hunt, said a lot of new money is going into improving England's mental health services under the Conservatives. The Liberal Democrats dismissed today's pledge as meaningless rhetoric. Here's our health editor, Hugh Pym.
Theresa May has already talked of transforming the way mental health problems are dealt with across society.
You've got the comfort of knowing that you can come. Yes. Even if you don't need to.
Now there are more details of what she wants to do if she gets back to Downing Street. The Conservatives say there are concerns that individuals, including young people, are detained unnecessarily in police cells and secure mental health wards, so the Mental Health Act, which dates back more than 30 years, should be scrapped and replaced.
If you have a child that has severe mental health problems, and you find that that child, instead of getting treated by the NHS, actually ends up in a police cell, that is a terrible thing for the child, probably make their condition worse, but it's also very bad for the police as well. We want to stop that.
We need to give them confidence.
But the Liberal Democrats criticised the Conservative government's record on mental health.
When I come across families who are waiting desperately for their children to receive the care they need, they feel badly let down by this government. So for me, it's empty rhetoric at the moment.
The Conservatives also say they want to increase staffing levels in all areas of mental health care in England, with 10,000 more planned by 2020. Currently, there are 200,000 in a variety of roles. But according to government figures, the number of mental health nurses is down 6,600 since 2010. Mental health charities welcome the aims but are doubtful about what can be delivered.
We've got to resource the front line so that there are enough beds and that there are enough people, and we wonder if the 10,000 people promised that will be trained by 2020 will be sufficient to meet such demand.
The Conservatives acknowledge that funding will come from existing planned NHS budget increases. Labour said the Tories hadn't delivered on a promise to give mental health the same priority as physical health, and warm words wouldn't help tackle the injustice of unequal treatment. Hugh Pym, BBC News.
82 Nigerian schoolgirls kidnapped by the extremist group Boko Haram 3 years ago met their country's president today after being freed in a prisoner swap. They were among more than 200 girls taken from their school in the town of Chibok. At least 100 are still being held. With more details, here's our Africa correspondent, Alistair Leithhead.
Released only a day ago, 3 years held in the forest by Boko Haram, here they are in the Nigerian capital, meeting President Buhari. Campaigners and the families of those held still don't know if their daughters are among those freed or the more than 100 still being held.
Whether she's among the ones that are freed or still in captivity, I don't know yet. But either my baby is among the freed one or not, I'm very happy.
This photograph was the first proof they were free, a helicopter ride to the capital. And once in Abuja, they were under the care of Nigerian soldiers, taken for a medical checkup. They looked tired and confused by all the attention. Some needed treatment.
I'm very glad that you are back, and every Nigerian today must be forgetting every other hardship is suffering, because it is a very joyous moment.
This Boko Haram video shows the girls shortly after they were kidnapped in April 2014. They were taken from Chibok Government Girls Secondary School. It sparked international outrage and a global campaign to have them freed. Last October, the first 21 were released, as negotiations finally bore fruit. The government says talks will now continue to free the rest. These girls have grown up under Boko Haram. Captives are often forced to marry their captors. Emotions will be in turmoil, and returning to their families and communities will not be easy. Alistair Leithhead, BBC News, Nairobi.
North Korea says it has detained an American citizen on suspicion of carrying out what it called hostile acts. The state news agency said the man had been working for the Pyongyang University of Science and Technology. He's the second American to be detained by North Korea in the last fortnight. It's now holding 4 US nationals in total. Back now to the general election, and the Liberal Democrats said today that their manifesto will include a commitment to keep the triple lock on the state pension. That's the guarantee that it increases alongside inflation, average wages, or 2.5%, whichever is the highest. Labour has also pledged to retain the triple lock. Theresa May has declined to say whether the Conservatives would do so. Each week, Steph McGovern and the BBC's Reality Check team will be looking at some of the key issues facing voters, and they begin tonight with the state pension and the triple lock. How affordable is it?
I'm sure we've all thought of ways to try and make a bit of extra money and make life a bit easier, especially as you're getting older and thinking about retiring. Now, it can be tough to save for a private pension, so a lot of people rely on the state one. There are around 13 million people claiming a state pension. It works out at a maximum of just over £159 a week, and that costs over £90 billion a year, which is about 12% of the government's total spending. So how much it goes up by each year is based on something called the triple lock. So statisticians will look at how much average earnings have gone up by and how much inflation, the cost of living, has risen as well. If either of them are over 2.5%, then they will go with the highest. If they're less than that, then they'll increase the state pension by 2.5%. Basically, whichever of these three is highest. So this means even at times when price rises and the increase in the cost of living has been close to zero, the state pension has still been going up by 2.5%. Have a look at this graph. Now, since April 2010, the state pension has gone up by 25%. That compares with earnings going up by about 14% and prices, inflation, by 15%. So there's a big difference there, isn't there? So, if you're retired or you're close to retiring, then this system is good news for you. And Barry, you think you deserve this rise every year, don't you?
I do deserve the rise. We need the increase every year. I'm 73 years old and I'm still working.
I know I'm going to let you get back to it. Thanks, Barry. But for George, it is a different story. Because for you, George, you're a lot younger and you are finding it tough to save for anything.
Yeah, I'm 28. I've been working since I finished university and haven't saved much money yet.
And do you feel like you'll be working for a long time before you can retire?
Yeah, I feel like retirement's a long way off.
It's clear the triple lock system divides the generations. Now, older people are more likely to vote in an election, so it's good for harnessing the grey vote, but it's stirring up inequalities between the young and the old for the future. There's also a bigger question as well about whether it is sustainable. Tom, come with me. Is it sustainable?
No, Steph, it's not. It's already costing the country several £billion more to sustain at the moment, and that cost is going to keep on going up over the decades to come. So the next government is going to have to make some pretty tough decisions about how and when it's going to get rid of the triple lock and what it's going to do instead.
Right, I'll let you get back to your shopping, Tom. If we don't have that system though, what do we do? Because people still need money when they retire, and it can't be at a fixed rate when everything around is changing. So one option is to have a double lock system. So get rid of the 2.5% minimum and instead go by either how much earnings are increasing by or how much the cost of living is rising. This is about fairness and sustainability. Also, some organisations think the triple lock system is simply an arbitrary way of setting pension rises. And if things carry on as they are, it's highly likely the age of retirement will have to keep going up. Steph McGovern, BBC News, Walton-on-Thames.
Part of a new series that will be running between now and the election. Football now, and you'll be able to watch highlights of today's Premier League and Scottish Premiership matches in Match of the Day 2 and Sports Scene later on. The Championship title has been won by Newcastle after beating Barnsley 3-0. It comes as the 1995 Premier League champions Blackburn were relegated to the third tier of English football. That's despite beating Brentford 3-1. That's it from me in London. Now back to Hugh in Paris.
Michelle, thanks a lot. So the people of France are taking in the news that they have elected the youngest president in their history, a politician with no background of elected office. He's beaten Marine Le Pen of the Front National, who declared tonight that her party was now firmly established as the main party of opposition in France. Lucy Williamson, our Paris correspondent, is with me again. I'd like to talk now, Lucy, about what kind of president Monsieur Macron is going to be. We've seen him campaigning, but very often, of course, that's very different to holding office and running the show. What do you think this presidency is going to be about?
He is young. He's energetic, he's charismatic, he talks a lot about optimism, he talks a lot about breaking the system, renewing the system. I'll tell you an anecdote we heard just the last couple of days from his time as a state auditor. One of his colleagues remembered how he used to leapfrog layers and layers of senior management. Once he even took his proposal straight to the Elysee Palace. Didn't please his senior managers very much, but it made the point. This is a man who doesn't like obstacles to get in his way. Now, he's got one very big obstacle coming up next month, and that's the parliamentary elections here. Without a good result there, without a stable coalition, he won't be able to implement his project very easily, and I think that's the biggest thing facing him at the moment.
Lucy, again, thank you very much. Lucy Williamson there, our Paris correspondent. And that is all from Paris for tonight. In a moment, we'll have the news where you are. But we're going to leave you with some of the memorable scenes from France on the day that Emmanuel Macron was elected President of the Republic. Have a good night.
Merci mes amis.